Hi First Violins! This is your discussion video for Sahara Crossing. First thing I want to talk about is how to play soft, how to play piano. I discussed this in the English folk song video, but I don't know what order you're going to watch these videos in. So if you haven't seen that one yet, here's how to play soft. This is something that your entire orchestra is struggling with right now, and many young orchestras have this problem of how to play soft. So there's like 3 easy little tips for ish. So tip number 1 is to move your bow away from the bridge. It wants to be closer to the fingerboard to play soft, not over top of the fingerboard, just closer to it. Tip number 2 is to tilt your bow away from your face. The stick goes away from your face, not stick towards your face. This is bad. This is a no-no. But if you tilt the stick away from your face, you're actually playing with less bow hair contacting the string. So if there's less hair contacting the string, there's less potential for big, loud sounds. So you're going to move your bow farther from the bridge. You're going to tilt the bow stick away from your face, and don't use a whole lot of pressure. Try, just for an experiment, try not putting any weight, not putting any pressure on your bow at all, just letting gravity do its work, and see what kind of sound your bow makes. Mine is this loud. Sorry, my strings are gross and out of tune right now. But it's making a pretty decent sound, a decent soft sound when I'm not doing any pressure at all. So then if I'm far away from the bridge and I'm using the side of my hair, not putting any pressure on, I can also use a slower bow speed. Because if you use a really fast bow sounds all whispery and weird. So make sure that you don't have a whole lot of pressure on the string, but you're moving slow enough to get the string to make a sound. So those are your tips on how to play soft. My next note is low first finger, but high second finger. Let's see where this takes us. Oh, basically just at the beginning, everybody, all violins and violas play D, E flat on the first bar, and then your harmonies split off after that. So make sure that E flat is back here by the nut. This thing back here that has the grooves where your strings sit in it, this is the nut. This is where low first finger lives, not somewhere slightly behind the first finger tape. If this is E natural, E flat is all the way back here. That being said, every instrument is a little bit different, so maybe your first finger tape is slightly incorrect. You're gonna have to listen around, and if you go like way too far back towards the nut, and maybe that's too flat for your instrument. Maybe your string is flat today or something. So you're gonna have to listen and adjust and figure out exactly where your low first finger lives on your instrument. And then in measure 5, that's an F sharp. So you've gone open, low 1, open 3. You're probably going to end up resetting your hand into this normal hand position anyway. But just make sure that your 2 is actually all the way up on the tape. Let's see here. Measure 24 is apparently the next tricky thing I want to talk about. Ah, I see. Sorry, I made notes for all of these videos because I have to make 15 discussion videos today. So I sat down, I spent yesterday making all of these notes, and now I'm trying to decipher what I meant. So I said, measure 24 is tricky because you have to switch from a 2-3 hand pattern, finger pattern on the D string. So 2-3 meaning that your second finger and third finger are close, like this. But then you've got a low 1 and a low 2 on the A string. How crazy is that? How do you know where low 2 is if your first finger isn't on the first finger tape? Well, first of all, it's going to be way easier for you because you can see you can see your tapes when you're playing, and I don't really know where my fingers are in space right now. So measure 24, starting on the second beat, is 3, high 2, 3, open A, low 1. Remember, low 1 is back here by the nut. Low 1, low 2. Remember that low 2 is actually here beside your first finger. So it would be beside the first finger tape if your first finger was on the tape, but instead it's way back here. And then you've got to reach up for D natural. So this, I'm not sure if I can pluck it, but I'll try. So that's a really tricky little passage. Make sure that you're really solid in measure 24, because there's also a crescendo to fortissimo. You guys are the only ones with eighth notes here. You're really pushing the entire orchestra to get louder with this lick, so make sure that all of these notes are correct. Moving on to measure 48 and 49. This is something that we struggled with every single time we played it. When I led the rehearsal a few weeks ago and Mr. Hughes was out of town, everybody had problems coming in correctly in 48 because everybody wanted to play a half note on beat 4, which isn't even possible. You can't play a half note on beat 4, not in 4/4, not in like 4/4 time signature. So make sure that your note in measure 48 is only one beat long. It is a single quarter note, and then you start playing half notes in measure 49. Measure 52. Be loud but pretty. You're the only melody line here, and your long notes are in danger of being obliterated by everyone else. Past me was totally correct. Maybe not very eloquent, but correct. So, Violin 1, you are literally the only melody in measure 52. Everybody else just has quarter, eighth note, quarter, eighth note. So, ba, 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 ba. And it's all forte, and it's all the same notes for them. So they're just going to be hammering away. And you guys have these long notes, which it's really hard to play a long note loud for the entire length of the note. I'm scared to play this violin because it's so out of tune right now. So remember how I was saying to use a slow bow but no pressure for soft notes? For loud notes, you want to use a slow bow but have some pressure. Because if you use too much bow, like, it started out loud, but then it just dies because I used too much bow. So I like to think of it as using a compact bow. So you're engaged with the string. So you're not really using a whole lot of bow at all, but it's a delicate mastery of how much bow speed you need to use versus how much pressure you need to use. It's basically a mathematical equation, because if you press too hard and don't move your bow fast enough, you get this noise. But But if I just move it a little faster, I get a note, not a noise, right? Same amount of pressure, different amount of speed. So this is something that is individual to every person and every person's instrument setup. So it's something that you will have to figure out on your own how much pressure you can use and what kind of bow speed you need to use to get a nice forte. I know that's out of tune. I apologize. If you've got perfect pitch, you're like crying right now. So make sure that you work on that so that we can actually hear what you guys are doing at measure 52, and it's not just a whole bunch of I saw my microphone light flickering, which means I overloaded it with noise with how loud I just played. That's exactly what's going to happen in the orchestra when you've got all of the second violins, violas, cellos, and basses playing that rhythm, and 3 or 4 first violins playing the melody, this long, flowing, gorgeous melody. Yeah. So be careful, be mindful. And then the only other thing that I have written is count carefully in the coda. You've got long note values here at the beginning of the coda, and then starting in measure 68, that's where things get tricky with lining up the pizzicatos correctly. Cellos play on beat 1, 2, and 3 of measure 68. Violas and violin 2 come in on beat 4 of measure 68. They also play on beat 1 of 69. Then you guys come in on beat 2 of 69. So it's kind of working its way up the orchestra. And then you are all together on beat 4 of 69 for 1, 3, 1. So just make sure that you count all these rests carefully. Watch Mr. Hughes, especially in measure 68. That'll help you if you get confused, if you're not sure what's happening. You can watch him. You cut off on 1 and you can just watch 2, 3, 4, 1, and he'll probably even cue you guys in. He's a much better conductor than I am. So he'll probably be cueing each of these little entrances to help you guys out. Speaking of helping you guys out, here's a slow practice video for Sahara Crossing and a performance tempo practice video for Sahara Crossing. And here is the violin 2 and viola slow practice videos that you can play along with as well. Remember, I mentioned this, 2 weeks ago when I last saw you. I'd like you to do the slow practice videos at least 5 times. This does not mean that you have to do the violin 1 slow practice video 5 times before moving on. It means that you can do the violin 1 slow video 2 or 3 times, and then go play along with the violin 2 video a couple of times, and the viola video once. Just as long as it adds up to the fact that you practiced slowly 5 times, I will be happy. The reason that we practice slowly is because it gives you the time to make sure that everything is perfect before speeding it up, because you can easily practice in mistakes and bad habits if you start practicing too fast too soon. So please take advantage of these slow practice videos, and happy practicing.